Hello and welcome to Kids Corner. I'm Shirley. I'm here with Sir Winston and also with my Welsh dragon. This fella is usually found flying around in my bedroom because he's fastened to the light switch that's under my fan. Now there is another Welsh dragon in our household. This one is a lot more fierce and he's on my dishcloth. And you can see it here. He looks kinda mean. So Sir Winston and I have been experimenting with how to make a Welsh dragon. You can see some examples here, and our first one kind of looked like a pig. So then we tried a second one, and it's looking a little better, but we still needed some changes. So now we're going to try a third one. So, to make a Welsh dragon, you're going to need green and red crayons or pencil crayons markers. I would suggest a black marker or a black pencil crayon. You want something that's very fine. Eraser and a pencil. You'll need some bristle board and some pieces of scrap paper, glue, and of course a toilet paper roll. And as always, you need to check it in the very beginning to make sure that it doesn't have any paper sticking to it. Now, unlike a lot of other toilet paper roll animals that we've made together, we're going to start this one a little differently because we're going to cut out all the parts. So when we're painting or coloring, we're going to do all that at once. Now I've already cut out and painted because it takes a while, and Sir Winston and I had quite a bit of paint to wash off our hands and paws. So I have drawn out what we're going to need to do. And so we're going to make a wing. And I made mine out of paper, an arm, and those I made out of bristle board, but you can make them out of paper if you've got a stiff paper. I made a tongue, which is kind of like a fat arrow. That I would make out of paper. A tail, that's definitely out of bristle board. That's the most important to have out of bristle board. And an ear, and I made mine out of paper. And I'll leave a picture of this at the end of the video so you can have a closer look at it to try and figure out what shapes are and what you would like to make. And you can see at the bottom some of the experiments that we have been doing in terms of eyes and mouth before we came up with this one. My daughter thought the set of eyes we had on the last one were sad, so we went for kind of happy or friendly eyes. So you're going to draw those out, cut them out, and we are going to paint them after a few minutes because we're going to start on here. And here's where your pencil and eraser will come in rather handy. So what we're going to do is first look at your toilet paper roll, and you want to pick a spot that in the middle of it does not have a seam coming down and through, because that's going to make it easier for what we are going to do with the legs. And then I think it's probably a little better here because if possible, you don't want a seam that's going to come through its face either. So you're going to take your pencil, and the easiest thing to do is to start with the, the snout of them. And you're going to go and you're going to sketch it out, and then you're going to go over it with the marker, and then you're going to paint. And so what I'm going to do is to pick up the one that I have done and describe how I did it. So I started, take your pencil and sort of lightly make a good half circle. And it's easier if you draw a line across it so that you know kind of where the ends of his mouth will be, so you can make them even. And then I did kind of another half circle up, and I did 3 triangles out for teeth, so that the top one came straight down and the other 2 were slanted. And I just did a little nick up here to give him a little hint of a smile. And then I went in and down for his lower jaw. So that this is kind of more of a circle. This is not. It's got a little bit more of a square shape. And I put in 2 teeth that would kind of fit in the spot up here. And I put in, he's got almost like a whisker here. So I put in a whisker. For his nose, if you think of making kind of a rounded M, sort of like a small M at the top in the middle, and I put a little kind of line down on each side. For his eyes, I put them sort of either side and they're on an angle. So it's easier to mark across and then it's kind of like 3/4 of a circle, and then another 3/4 of a circle inside, and yet another one inside that. The smallest circle you're not going to color in. The middle circle you are. And here's where you're going to take your marker, and if you're happy with what you've penciled in, then go around it with your marker, kind of color in the middle circle of the eyes and color in sort of the inside of his mouth, not his teeth, and don't go up around because we're going to use the red to sort of be his lips, and that will make his teeth look bigger. When you have that all lined up, then what you're going to do is here, make like a big U and cut this piece out. And then you're going to give him claws for his feet. And we're going to give him 4 claws because our dragon on our tea towel had 4 claws. And how you're going to make that is you're going to cut up to make almost like little triangles. And now, when you get that done, it's time to color or paint. And how I started was I started with green for the claws. Now, if you just have crayons, my suggestion is to make a flat, long rectangle here and then cut out the little triangles, because that will be easier than painting them. And then I painted, I left the eyes alone and left the teeth alone and painted around here. And when you're all done painting and it's dry, if you've painted over any of the black, you can come back with your marker and touch it up. Now, for his wings, you're going to cut 2 of them like this, and you're going to paint them green. And I made mine out of paper, and sometimes if you want, you can kind of curve the paper a bit when it's drying. Now, his arms, I cut 2 of them, and when you go to paint them, it's almost like painting fingernails. Sort of at the end of each of the tips of his finger, I took green and I gave them a little dab. And I did it on both sides. You're going to need to paint both sides of your wings and both sides of your arms, because people will be able to see them. Then these are his ears. And again, painted both sides. These I did out of paper, but you could do them out of bristle board if you like. Now, his tail's kind of a funny shape, isn't it? It doesn't look quite like an ordinary tail that's on a dragon, because what we did was we put a piece up here to make it look like the dragon has those scales going up his back. And so when you're painting it, paint the triangle on the end green, and you can paint these scales green. Now this one is a little tricky to get cut out, and so you may need the help of an adult. It's very much easier if you have small scissors. And sometimes it's a lot easier when you're cutting it to cut around the shape of it close and then go in closer yet with your scissors. And you may not find that you can perfectly cut what you drew, but just keep sort of cutting triangles in there to give you the shape of the scales. And this one you definitely need to make out of paper. It's like a fat arrow for the tongue, and again, paint or color both sides. So when you have all those done and dry, it's time to put our dragon together. So we're going to start with his arms. And one of the things that you'll want to pay attention to is that your arms have to be glued on in such a way that the thumbs are both facing up. So you're going to take your glue and you're going to put your glue on that part, on the kind of circly end. And we're going to pick up our dragon. We're going to put that on, and you'll need to hold it for just a second so that the glue is held. See, I've already put the glue on the wrong side on the other one, so I didn't pay as much attention as I should. So his thumb is pointing up. So you want to think when you put this one on that the thumb will be up too. So I'm just going to lightly take it off with my finger and put glue around the other side. Kind of spread it a bit with my finger. And what you want to do is try to make sure that his arms or his shoulders start, that they're level. I'm just going to pinch that for a second to make sure that it's dry so that our arms don't fall off. Now, what we're going to do with his ears, and now we're going to be very careful laying them out, is that kind of the flat part along the bottom will go on top of the eye. So we're going to take one and we're going to put glue along the flat part, and we're going to glue it on so that the top of the horn is going up like that. And we're going to look at the other one, and we're going to be careful that when we put the glue on the back of it, that once we go to glue it on, that the top will also be going up like that. I think before we put on his wings, we're going to see how high up the tail goes. And here's where our pencil is going to come in handy, because you'll notice the tail has a little slant up here, and what I want to do is pick the middle of the back, hold the tail up against it so that the very bottom is lined up. Pick what I think is the center, and I'm going to put a little mark with my pencil at the top of this part of it. And I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut a straight line up, pencil mark, and then I'm going to take this and fit it up inside to the end and see how well it lines up with the bottom. And mine needs just a little bit more. I'm going to take my scissors and nip it up just a little bit more and fit it in. So I have a sense of how high this comes up in the back, because when I put on my wings, I want to leave enough space for these. So I'm looking at my wings and making sure that when I put them on, that it's the same top for both of them. So once you've decided what's your top and what's your bottom, I'm going to take it and put a little bit of glue on that part of it, and you're going to hold it for a second to dry. And then make sure the same top, and you're going to put a little bit of glue on what would be the back of it. And glue it on so that the points of the wings are roughly in the same place. And again, hold it for a couple of seconds so that it will stick on and not fall off. And this is what the back looks like. Now, there's one piece that we need to do, and that's the tongue. It's a little tricky. What we're going to do is at the end of the tongue, not the arrow end, but the straight end, we're going to bend it down a little. And that bent part, we're going to stick on some glue. And then we're going to stick it in the middle of his mouth. If you want to get really fancy and you think your dragon is fierce, then you can draw a spurt of fire coming out. And there we go. There's our Welsh dragon. He looks a little bit fierce, but I think he's still friendly like our dragon here. Now it's red and green because it's the colors of the Welsh flag. Shall we have a little prayer together? If you could bow your heads and repeat after me. Loving God, thank you for being with me. Help me to be brave like a dragon. Help me to be kind to others and look after your world. Amen. And we'll see you next time at Kids Corner.